It is You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. And this week it's not just me answering your questions, as I said last week, because this is the 150th episode of this series. It'll be me and Stuffy and Toby Benson and Jack McPherson and Millicent and the rest of the cast from the Steve and Stuffy videos responding to your questions. So the first question is for Stuffy, and it comes from Fire262. Question for Stuffy. Given Steve has bought a house complete with a Cold War-era bomb shelter, Toby and Jack have invited you down to it with thrilling tales of boundless rations that, albeit slightly out of date, could be donated to the Mid-Atlantic Food Bank. Would you go, or would you rather rent the shelter to the homeless for a half-empty bottle of Thunderbird?
Unfortunately, I don't think the homelessness problem in Hagerstown would be helped very much by renting out a Cold War-era bomb shelter to some of them. But if Toby Benson and Jack McPherson are serious about donating the rations from the bomb shelter to the Mid-Atlantic Food Bank, I would be happy to furnish them with a schedule for when we accept donations at all of our area locations. But there's no way I'm going down into that bomb shelter alone with them.
Dangerously Talented. Question for Adi. How do you feel about not being included in the Steve and Stuffy videos? I mean, you are a flesh and blood cat, and all the other stars of the show are stuffed animals. Adi, how do you feel about that? You've been in Steve and Stuffy videos, haven't you? Yeah. The occasional cameo appearance. I didn't. Well, if I knew you were going to be that upset about it, I would have written you into more. I'm very sorry. I had no idea it meant that much to you. Okay, go ahead. You're done. Knight6831. I have a question for Millicent. Do you have a superiority complex?
Superiority complex? More like I'm complexly superior. Now I understand why an inferior human such as yourself would consider a superiority complex a character flaw. But for a superior being such as myself, it is simply called self-esteem.
Brad Baumander. Hi, Steve. Many of my friends are atheist or at least not religious. One of my friends is a regular on an atheist Facebook page. Many theists, Christian, Muslim, Jewish people, leave posts on the page, preaching or give apologist arguments. My friend always responds to the theist post in a very insulting and hostile way, saying things like Muslims are in a death cult, Christians are stupid, and so on. While I am a bit more of an anti-theist myself, I also think you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. I want to tell my friend what he is doing is counterproductive, but I'm not sure how. What would you say to my friend? Thanks. Actually, I think you're being counterproductive, and you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar is a pretty good way to put it. Here's the thing. It's incredibly naive to think, as people like your friend evidently do, that all we as atheists need to do is just win a bunch of arguments with religious people. It's not that simple. For many people, I don't know if I would necessarily say for most people, but for many religious people, you just can't argue them out of their faith. Sometimes it's because they refuse to admit that your arguments have merit. Sometimes it's because they sincerely don't think your arguments do have merit, and they are truly, truly convinced and have a sincere conviction that their religion is true, that their beliefs are true. Either way, you can't make the world a better place and, counteract the negative effects of religion simply by just winning a lot of arguments, especially on a person-to-person basis. It's counterproductive because it doesn't really accomplish anything in terms of the big picture by starting fights with Christians or Muslims or Jews and then saying to yourself, well, I won that argument. If the other person comes away from the argument thinking that you're just an overbearing atheist asshole, then you really didn't win the argument, at least not from the perspective of advancing the cause of secularism or the acceptance of atheists or that sort of thing. It doesn't make things better, and for atheists, in some case, it can actually make things worse because it feeds that negative stereotype. Gentle Hum 1. Question for Toby Benson and Jack McPherson. Have you two ever considered moving out and getting your own place together instead of having all those roommates? I'm sure income wouldn't be a problem, if you know what I mean, baby. And Jack might want to have high-speed internet available for his upcoming presidential run.
You're leaving out a very important thing, baby. I'm here because of Ashley. Me and her known each other since going way back. And as long as she's here, I'm gonna be here too, baby.
All right, you sweet bastard, stop it before you give me cavities. The internet here is fine, as fast as it needs to be for me purposes. Plus, in addition to that, I've got all this slave labour here that will do my bidding for free. Why would I ever want to leave?
And it's rent-free.
Becca Hawkins. Hi, Steve. I recently had a conversation with a friend who called herself a moderate on trans issues. Yet she also complains that those who have a middle position, or those who are conservative on trans issues, are marginalized. She wants to hear more from Christian ethicists, philosophers, and academics on this. I would hope anyone who wants to comment on trans issues would at least do the hard work of paying attention to the science out there and the actual lived experiences of real trans people. My question is this: how do we respond to stuff like this? To me, it strikes me as the same sort of persecution complex that Christians have often had on issues like these. I would want to know if any of the Christian ethicists or philosophers or academics that your friend wants to hear from are also trans themselves. Because the most important voices that need to be heard are those of actual trans people, the people who are actually facing these issues, who are living these experiences, the people who are actually living in this disadvantaged, underprivileged state. They're the voices that need to be heard the most. They're the voices that need to be given the platforms. They're the ones that need to be consulted and deferred to, not philosophers and Christian ethicists and people with opinions that don't really have any standing in the matter. So that's what I would say. I would say if you really want to know what is going on and you really want to help figure out what you think about it and what you feel about it, you need to talk to the people who are actually affected by trans-related issues, and that would be trans people. And if some of them happen to be Christian ethicists or academics or philosophers, so much the better. But that's not really the point. The point is, if you want to know what's going on in the lives of people who live in a category or have an identity that you don't have, that you don't identify with, then you need to listen to what people in those categories and with those identities are saying. You know, and I'm not sure, what does it even mean to be a moderate on trans issues? They should have some rights. They should be sort of equal. I don't even really know what that means. Mr. CS83, Steve, what do you think about Black Lives Matters interrupting Bernie Sanders speeches? Are the protesters stepping on the toes of an important political ally, or are they right to take the advantage to have their voices heard? The Black Lives Matter protest interrupting Bernie Sanders' speech is something that I hear things from different sides of it. Some people say that the protesters who disrupted the Bernie Sanders speech were not officially associated with Black Lives Matter. And some people say whether they were or they weren't is irrelevant. That's not the point. The point is black activists who are advocating for black equality, who are opposing police brutality and systemic racism, are not going to kowtow to what people want them to do, especially white people. They're going to do what they feel they have to do to bring attention to the cause and to get their message out. Mike Yard on the Nightly Show last week said something about that, where he said, you know what, I don't think Black Lives Matter is going to wait for Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton or anybody. They're going to get out there where they need to get and say what they need to say. And I admire that. And I wish them all the best. I support them. And if it means occasionally that they disrupt a rally from someone that I like, and maybe they make me uncomfortable, maybe they do something that I don't think they should have done, that's good. Because you know what? They're not listening to me. And they shouldn't listen to me. I'm not the one who gets to tell them what to do. This is their movement. And I wish them all the luck in the world. I see it as my job to help them and support them and cheer them on. And not to presume that I get to tell them what to do. Jesper Lauman. Hey Stuffy, how would you describe your relationship with Adi? You know, the cat.
I get along with Adi. Of course, I get along with most people most of the time. She's usually very quiet, which I appreciate because I tend to be very quiet too during the day when I'm reading or thinking about things. I usually just sit quietly and don't move much or don't make much noise. And Adi's a lot like that. Cats kind of do the same thing. They settle down, they lay down, they curl up into little balls, and they just sit there and look at things or sleep and don't move much. And I can really relate to that.
Michael Michelletti. Hello, Steve. As someone who has had experience writing for a few different reasons, i.e. short stories or scripts, I have a question in regards to the writing process. I'm working on writing a novel/book, and my question pertains to creating an interesting villain/antagonist. What suggestions do you have when it comes to creating an interesting villain that isn't just an easy target for the protagonist to strive against? In essence, how would you humanize a villain? Thank you, and keep up the good videos. Well, there are a few tips I guess you could keep in mind when creating a villain if you want your villain to be humanized and not just a stock character for the hero to oppose. Villains, good villains, human villains, three-dimensional villains, they don't see themselves as villains. They see what they are doing and they see their goals as noble, as justified. They see themselves as the hero, not as the villain. So that's something to keep in mind. Your villain wouldn't think of him or herself as being evil or doing wrong. He or she would think of themselves as doing the right thing or as doing something that is necessary or that is justified in some way. Even if they may have conflicted feelings about it, they would say that ultimately they're doing what needs to be done or what must be done. And they wouldn't think of it in terms of, well, I'm the bad guy, I'm doing the evil thing. It would also help a great deal if you could find space in your story to show your villain doing things or interacting with people in circumstances that are not directly tied to whatever it is that makes them the villain. You know what I mean? So that every time we see them in the story, it's not, oh, let's see what dastardly thing they're doing, or let's see how they're plotting to fuck up the hero's life. Show them just being a person. Give them a life. Give them their own space in the story that isn't just about their conflict with the hero. Give them their own life and their own space. You want to balance that. You don't want to do that too much, or else you might wind up with a story that's a bit more rambling and a bit more episodic than maybe you would hope it would be. If you want to keep it nice and tight and streamlined and moving along, then you have to be careful about that sort of thing. But I think that's one of the best ways to humanize a villain, is to show your villain doing things in the story that aren't directly tied to moving the plot forward or furthering the conflict with the hero. That's another good way to humanize a villain. Just basically giving the villain their own story space to live as a character. The Pope is my mom. Steve, as an atheist, do you think hate and not forgiving is bad? When I was young, I was molested by my priest. Now I'm 24, and till this day, I hate that guy and I wish him harm. Of course, Christian people will say I'm wrong to feel this way. What's your take on hate and non-forgiveness? When something like that happens to you, I don't think it's right for anyone else to say that the way you honestly feel about it is wrong, no matter how you may feel about it. If you had let go of your hatred for this person years ago and you said, you know what, I've forgiven them and I'm at peace with it and I'm over it and I've moved on with my life, it wouldn't be my place to say, what are you talking about? You can't feel that way. That's wrong. This person did something terrible and you have to stay angry with them and you have to hate them and you have to hold them accountable. It would be wrong of me to say that. And it would also be wrong of me to say that your feelings of hatred and bitterness and wanting to do harm to this person are wrong. It happened to you and you feel the way you feel about it. And right and wrong are not the applicable terms to me. Now, I do think there are good reasons to forgive and to try and let go of hatred, to let go of resentment and move past it, that have nothing to do with any kind of religious commandment, and that really have nothing to do with the person that you are trying to forgive, or the person who is the cause of the resentment and the hatred, the person who did you wrong. It has to do with you and just being able to get on with your life and not have to carry all that baggage around. I think forgiveness, first and foremost, is something that you do if you want to do it, if you're able to do it, to release yourself from something, to ease a burden that you are carrying. Yes, it might help the other person too. If someone does you wrong and they are really bothered by it or haunted by it, and you can say to them sincerely, I forgive you for what you did to me, that can ease their burden. But the first reason is to ease your own burden, is to say, I'm going to let this go. I'm not going to carry this around. I'm not going to be angry about this anymore. I'm not going to hold this hatred anymore. I'm not going to hold this resentment anymore. I'm going to let this go and forgive and move on with my life. And this is not going to define me anymore. It's a lot more difficult than that. If only it were that easy, just saying that and saying, I've moved on. It's not nearly that easy. Especially for something as serious and devastating as what you describe happened to you. So no, it's not wrong that you haven't forgiven or that you don't want to forgive any more than it would be wrong for you to have done the opposite of that. But I do think forgiveness can be a good and healthy and beneficial thing, not because God told you to, because that's the worst reason to do anything, is just arbitrarily because somebody told you to do it and there's no underlying reason to do it. I think it's good to do because it can help you. It can release you, and it can ease your burden. Lord Xenu. Steve, I'm an atheist, but I believe in aliens. There are perhaps as many as 100 billion solar systems in our galaxy, and as many as 100 billion galaxies in our universe. That's not even included if there might be more than one universe, LOL. I see the chances of aliens existing to be possible. However, I know there is no proof they exist, and I don't really believe in alien abduction stories or the Area 51 conspiracies, but for whatever reason, I still believe in aliens. People say that the reasons I used to believe in aliens can be used for God. There's no proof that there's a God. It's not impossible for a God to be real, but I don't believe in God, but I believe in aliens? I don't know, maybe I believe in them because I want them to exist, but I'm not quite sure. Any thought or advice? I don't think belief in God and belief in aliens, for the reasons you describe, are quite the same thing. You are saying that the universe is so vast and so full of stuff that there are so many galaxies and so many stars in those galaxies and so many planets orbiting stars in those galaxies that odds are our planet is not the only place that evolved life. Most people who believe in God are followers of a particular religious faith. Now, there are people who just believe in a generic God. There are people who we might call deists or who might identify themselves as deists who don't hold to any particular religious tradition, who just believe that there's probably a God because of some philosophical argument that they found persuasive. I'm not really talking about those people, and most people who would give you a hard time about being an atheist probably wouldn't be of the deist persuasion. They would be members of a particular religion, like let's just say, I don't know, Christianity. Okay? Christians are not Christians because of arguments for God that are analogous to your arguments for the existence of aliens. Christians are Christians because they have accepted the doctrines and the claims of their church. So it's not, it's more likely that there is a God than there isn't. Their faith is way too specific and way too rooted in specific doctrines and traditions and claimed revelations from a particular God that they can't just say, if you believe in aliens, then you should believe in God. Because the God they're talking about, the God that they believe in, is not a God that they believe in based on some vague philosophical argument or some sense of probability. They believe in it because they have accepted that the Bible is the Word of God. They accepted that Christ was the Son of God, that He died, that He was resurrected on the third day, that mankind lives in a condition of sin that can be alleviated through the acceptance of the sacrifice of Christ. There are all these really specific doctrines that Christians believe in. And that's the God that they're talking about when they say you should believe in God, not some generic deist God. So no, the analogy to me just does not work. I just don't think you're talking about remotely the same things. And also, let's not forget as well, most concepts of God believe in a supernatural God. And aliens are not supernatural. Aliens are part of the universe, just the same as we are. They can't cause lightning to strike or thunderclaps to happen at the perfect time to end this segment. Only God can do that. Or me in post-production, when I want to give myself an excuse to say that it's time for
The lightning round. Rapid fire questions. Glib and adequate answers.
We'll start out with one for me from Der Wunderbar Bar. If you had the space for it, would you have A, the captain's chair from TNG, or B, the Emperor's throne room chair from the original Star Wars trilogy? This is not even close. This is not even a contest. The captain's chair from TNG is what I would have. Millicent, this next one is for you from Adrian Fournier-Com. Millicent, what brand of snacks is scientifically cooked for your perfect breed?
Snacks. A human construct. I only go for grade A meat. But Timberwolf is pretty good.
This next one is from Yarrow Kassir. All the cast, because I am insane. Lightning round. Briefs or boxers? Was that already asked? What about boxer briefs? Thongs? Commando? Everybody?
None.
None. None.
I do not wish to sully my mouth with opinions on the humble and grotesque clothings of humans. Unbelievable.
I wear neither boxers nor briefs. My genitals are as exposed as my emotions.
And my answer would have to be a none of the above, as y'all can plainly see. But I would just like to express my appreciation to you for asking a question of everybody so that me and Hans here could be in the video. Thank you very much. Patrick Dodds, Stuffy, who is the real Steve Shives? The lovable though sometimes grating know-it-all in most of the videos, or the lovable though sometimes grating slightly dim-witted fellow who appears with you and your plush friends in the other videos?
I would call it 60-40 in favor of the first one.
Isaac Johnson Cadell, hey Steve, where do you stand on Tom Cruise? And no, his windpipe is not a viable answer. I like Tom Cruise. I think he's a good actor. He seems like a nice, affable, likable guy when he's himself in interviews. I view him as a talented performer and a nice-seeming fellow who, for whatever reason, is a devoted member of a fucking insane religion. Skull Maroose, what breed is Stuffy? He looks like he might have some Basset Hound in him, but he sure doesn't act like mine.
Honestly, I have no idea what my breed is, so I don't identify with any particular breed. If anybody asks, I say simply, I am a stuffed dog.
Simon Dragon, a lightning round question. Are you a David Lynch fan? I love your videos. Oh, thank you, Simon. Yes, I am a David Lynch fan. Love me some David Lynch. Susan Sharp, great one, Steve. And how does one ask a question on You Had to Ask? You just did it, Susan. You just leave a comment on the video, and I'll get to it next week. Maybe. Like I did for you. Thanks. Jack McMorrow, in lieu of his Hall of Fame spot, would you accept Pete Rose being tombstoned by Kane at WrestleMania again? Yeah, but yeah, I think if they're going to do that again, they should save that for Kane's retirement match. If they want to give Kane like a big send-off, a big-time retirement angle, and they want to do it at WrestleMania, then for that, they should bring Pete Rose in for one last spot with Kane. But anything other than something like that, I can do without it. The Atheist Virgin, cry for me. Lightning round, Steve. I have a super serious question. I need your help. If God made humans from dirt, why is there still dirt? Because God wishes there to be dirt. Atheist Virgin, cry for me. That's why. God created man from dirt for his own purposes, and he left the rest of the dirt just the way it was for his own purposes, for his own reasons. Do you believe that God exists? Do you believe that if God existed and he was an omnipotent God, that he would be able to create human beings out of dirt and still have dirt be there? Do you believe that God would be able to do that? Well, then that's what God did. And I really kind of resent you asking the question. Who are you to question God's methods? If there's dirt, it's clearly because God wanted there to be dirt. And frankly, for your own safety, I think we should abandon this question right now. And what the hell? What was the last question in the lightning round anyway? So let's just move on to the shout out. The shout out this week goes to an awesome channel. It is the YouTube channel of the Evil Atheists. Despite that ominous sounding title, the Evil Atheists are in fact two brothers from Utah, and they are just about the nicest, most well-mannered young men you'd ever want to meet. They come out of a Mormon background, a Mormon tradition, and you know, I was thinking as I was watching some of these guys' videos to prepare for this shout out, how many really interesting atheists have come out of a Mormon tradition. I have quite a few friends on Facebook who are now atheists, who used to identify as Mormons, who were raised in a Mormon church, in a Mormon family, and they have such an interesting perspective that is a nice addition to the typical American atheist, that if they came out of a religious background, it was a Christian background. In addition to the Evil Atheist, there's also Brian Keith Dalton, who is the writer and star of Mr. Deity. He used to be a Mormon. And a friend of the Evil Atheists, and also a friend of mine, Josh, ZZZ Giant Awake, who is now also a member of the Breakfast Club. He comes from a Mormon background. He's from Utah as well, and he even appears in videos from time to time with the Evil Atheists. So check out their channel. It's an awesome channel. They're really great guys. They have a really wonderful sensitivity and perspective. They talk about their background as Mormons and how they see things from that point of view. They talk about politics and current events, and I cannot recommend their channel highly enough. Check out the Evil Atheists. They're really cool guys, and I don't think you'll be sorry that you did. I also want to remind you, as I always do, to listen to the Lemme Listen podcasts. Jason Harding, the mad puppet master of Opinionville, one of my best friends on the internet. He does podcasts, and they're awesome podcasts. And one of those podcasts is co-hosted by yours truly. Jason and I co-host a podcast called Late Seating that comes out every 2 weeks with a new episode. We review movies of note, notable films, either great movies or infamously bad movies. And our new episode, which goes up for your listening pleasure later today, Friday as this video goes up, is about one of those notable failures in recent cinema history. We are talking about Ishtar. So that is the most recent episode of Late Seating. It will be up a little bit later today if you're watching this video as I publish it. Check it out. Also check out Jason's other podcasts like Lemme Finish, co-hosted with another fellow YouTuber, Finite Atticus. Also check out American Monsters and How to Destroy Them, a hilarious improv comedy podcast. It is sort of a cross between Coast to Coast AM and This American Life. It is absolutely hysterical and awesome, and I highly recommend it. And you can listen to all of these podcasts at a brand new website just started by Jason for the purpose of hosting these podcasts. All you need to do is go to www.LemmeListenPodcasts.com. LemmeListenPodcast.com. You can listen to all these podcasts I've just been talking about, shilling so shamelessly. So please do that. I don't think you will regret it. Just like you won't regret checking out the Evil Atheists. You won't regret doing anything that I've ever told you to do. So just do whatever I tell you from now on. Don't ask questions. Hey, that's it for me, everybody. Please leave a comment on this video to ask me your question for next time. Ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. I will answer as many of them as I possibly can in the next video. So until then, take care, everybody.
Wait, I don't get to talk anymore? That's it?
Yeah, those are the only questions for you. I'm sorry.
You are ridiculous!